Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate the time you took to be here. So, healthcare is changing fast, and the reality is that all of us are being asked to operate in a more complex, more regulated, and more performance-driven environment than we ever have before. And we're seeing increased pressure from every direction with the regulatory oversight, value-based care expectations. They want more documentation accuracy, compliance standards, and better patient outcomes. So what used to be considered long-term strategic goals are now part of our day-to-day operational priorities. So we can't afford to stay reactive. Looking backwards, fixing problems after the fact, or relying too heavily on those retrospective processes, that's becoming more costly and more burdensome, and frankly, it's less sustainable. So for organizations that are going to succeed, these are the ones that learn how to act earlier identification of risk, earlier intervention in care gaps, compliance oversight, alignment between quality, finance, and clinical operations. This is what really what today's presentation is about. I want to talk about building a stronger, smarter, and more proactive healthcare system, one that supports providers, improves the patient outcomes, strengthens compliance, and positions your company for long-term success. So we're going to look at how better alignment across risk, quality, compliance, and technology can create those measurable improvements across the organization. Because moving forward into success is not just about working harder, but about working earlier, smarter, and building systems that are designed for what we now see as realities of modern healthcare. So with today's healthcare being more complex, regulated, and more performance-driven than ever before, healthcare leaders' success now depends on being proactive rather than reactive across compliance, patient outcomes, financial sustainability, and provider operations. Earlier action consistently leads to better results. So this means building stronger systems, smarter workflows, and more integrated strategies that will prioritize your accurate documentation, risk and quality alignment, preventive care compliance, provider support, responsible AI adoption, and as regulatory expectations continue to grow, relying on that retrospective correction alone will create unnecessary risk for you. So to be leaders in this environment, we need to focus on strengthening point of care intelligence and improving that operational integration. We want to reduce that administrative burden and be able to scale responsibly and with strong governance. So it's about more than just keeping pace. This is our opportunity to be leaders. The future of healthcare performance will depend on acting earlier, integrating smarter, and maintaining that consistent strategic oversight. So traditional reactive healthcare systems are becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. The retrospective chart reviews, post-visit audits, and delayed corrections often create unnecessary administrative burden, and frankly, they don't achieve as much as pre-review and prepping. They increase operational costs and expose organizations to greater compliance risk. So stronger performance depends on shifting from correction after the fact to earlier, more proactive intervention. So what this means is like investing in systems and workflows that help to improve the documentation earlier and support the providers in real time to be able to close the care gap sooner, strengthen compliance, and reduce that downstream rework. So at the point of service, as healthcare complexity and regulatory pressure are continuing to grow. Every year we see it. Organizations relying too heavily on these retrospective models struggle to remain efficient and competitive. So it's a clear path forward. Strengthen that point of care intelligence, better align risk and quality initiatives. They work hand in hand, and improve the data integration. The data kind of drives everything we do, and reduce that unnecessary burden. So for your company, for all of us, this is an opportunity to move beyond being reactive in our operations and just building a more efficient model focused on earlier action and overall stronger long-term performance. So let's talk more about data. Delivering actionable data at the right time has become a critical priority. Operational success depends on moving beyond the delayed reviews and retrospective corrections. So you need those meaningful, timely insights before or during your patient encounters, not weeks or months later. So this means investing in systems and workflows that prioritize real-time access to suspected chronic conditions, your preventative care opportunities, your documentation gaps, utilization history, quality performance indicators. So when clinicians are equipped with that relevant information at the point of care, they can make more informed decisions and improve their documentation accuracy, which ultimately will strengthen those patient outcomes and reduce that costly downstream rework. It also supports some strategic priorities around CDEI and risk adjustment performance. As the regulatory expectations continue to rise, organizations that rely too heavily on the after the fact correction are going to face growing inefficiencies and compliance vulnerabilities. So instead, if you want to be a strong performing organization, you have to look at that, strengthening that point of care intelligence and improving your data process, interoperability, be able to better align your risk and quality initiatives. Delivering the actionable data when it matters most not only improves workflows, but it gives you that bigger picture of makes you more proactive and sustainable. It allows for that strategizing and that earlier intervention. Breaking down operational silos has become increasingly important. Too often, critical functions like risk adjustment, quality improvement, compliance, provider engagement, these things all operate independently, and that happens even though they're deeply interconnected. So we want to create better alignment across these areas. While our risk adjustment and quality departments are separate, often, I know they are where I work, we still work very closely together and have an understanding of how the activities of our respective departments can help achieve the goals of both. So when organizations integrate risk and quality strategies, this helps to improve the documentation accuracy and strengthen those preventative care efforts. And overall improve those value-based care outcomes. Fragmented systems create inefficiencies, missed opportunities, and make your organization more vulnerable. Instead, focus on aligning risk and quality initiatives, strengthening your data interoperability. I know I'm kind of redundant here, but it's so important. Improving your point of care intelligence and reducing those operational silos. And of course, scaling your oversight responsibly also. As leaders, we must recognize that to be operationally excellent, we have to require that proactive framework rather than retrospectively correcting things. You know, doing that early intervention consistently, it will lead to stronger outcomes. So it's important to invest in systems, leadership strategies, and data. And this will shift multiple operational domains, including your clinical documentation integrity, your risk adjustment performance, and your preventative care quality performance, as well as compliance. As CMS and NCQA continue to increase scrutiny, organizations that rely solely on after-the-fact correction they face increasing vulnerabilities. So to be successful, we have to continue to strengthen the point of care intelligence and align those risk and quality initiatives, data operability, and so on. And execution is what drives success in today's healthcare environment. As value-based care becomes standard, healthcare organizations need more than just strategy. You know, the strong operational performance is key. Things like completing annual wellness visits earlier, identifying chronic conditions sooner, closing care gaps proactively, aligning your risk and quality efforts, reducing administrative burden, strengthening governance. Okay, so annual wellness visits, I always recommend that whenever possible, that those be completed as early in the year as possible. These are a visit that gives you the adequate time to capture both your risk and quality gaps, close those gaps. For some plans allow once in the calendar year, and others require the 366 days in between, 365 days. So it'll depend on the plan on whether or not you can get them in early in the year. But even if they are on under the requirement with the 365 days and they're scheduled at the end of the year, that's risky in itself. It might even be worth skipping the 1 year and getting them scheduled back in like January. You'll take a small loss for probably a future gain. It's just a strategy you can consider. So compliance can't be treated any longer like a periodic review process. It kind of has to be built into everyday workflows as well. We have to consider audit readiness, provider education, and just having that strong governance to help reduce the compliance risk, improve that coding integrity. Overall, it'll strengthen your long-term financial and clinical performance much better than doing those seasonal corrections or retro audits. As systems face increasing scrutiny, the larger patient populations and more complex value-based care demands, simple expansion of existing processes is not enough. Growth without structure often creates more administrative burden and greater compliance exposure, and ultimately provider fatigue as well. So we want systems that improve performance while maintaining clinical relevance and governance. So you want to start with a stronger infrastructure. You're in your integrated data systems. Look at your workflows, your clinical insights. Coordinate your quality and risk program. And of course, be aware of the compliance oversight. Not to create more complexity, but to manage the complexity that's there more effectively. Technology, particularly AI and advanced analytics, can support this effort by helping process large volumes of clinical and administrative data more efficiently. So if used appropriately, these tools can surface suspect conditions earlier and prioritize the patient-provider workflows. They can support coding accuracy, identify care gaps, and improve operational consistency. However, technology alone does not solve all operational challenges. Without that proper governance, AI can introduce new risks. Things like alert fatigue, provider disengagement. They get to be maybe too trusting of the AI. Inaccurate recommendations. AI is great, but it can't be trusted. We have to review what it does. And this can create compliance vulnerabilities and reduce trust on the part of your providers also. So for this reason, human oversight and transparency and auditability do remain essential. And every tool that is deployed should have a clear purpose of improving patient care, strengthening provider decision-making, or supporting that operational efficiency. If the technology adds burden without a measurable value, it will become counterproductive. And then scaling should be responsible also, and that will require discipline on the part of leadership. We have to ensure that as programs expand, they don't create fragmented workflows or disconnected priorities. So the growth should strengthen the provider experience and patient outcomes, financial sustainability, and regulatory readiness by aligning the innovation with the operational maturity. It's not about adopting every new technology or expanding every initiative. It's about making some deliberate investments that improve the performance while preserving that accountability. So what success looks like is we must build scalable but manageable systems that integrate risk, quality, and compliance, and use AI thoughtfully while maintaining strong governance on that. And just pay attention to how much burden you're putting on your providers. Is it worth the outcome? So this is where proactive performance moves from individual initiatives to everyday operations with the goal of creating a system where we have integrated workflows, consistent governance, and we are able to scale operations effectively. Our providers feel supported The performance improvement is ongoing. The numbers are moving upward. So at that stage, success is less about reacting to the challenges and more about building an organization that's structured to handle them before they become larger problems. Creating an infrastructure that supports that long-term regulatory readiness, the sustainable value-based care performance, financial stability, and the operational resilience. Innovating responsibly, sustainably also requires discipline. We need to expand in ways that strengthen the performance without adding unnecessary complexity, burden, and or compliance risk. And so, of course, all this requires strong leadership alignment, clear accountability, and cross-functional collaboration. And can, re-review over and over, continuous refinement. I can't overemphasize the importance of creating systems that can adapt, improve, and scale while continuing to support strong patient outcomes and provider efficiency and organizational stability. So as the evolution continues, those that will perform best are the ones that act early and work more collaboratively and build those strong operational systems. Moving beyond the reactive models and creating that integrated approach to connect all those important areas, risk, quality, et cetera. The earlier intervention will allow us to identify risks sooner and close the care gaps faster, improve on the documentation accuracy, and strengthen both the patient outcomes and financial performance. Better alignment ensures that departments and initiatives are not working in isolation and contribute to those shared organizational goals. So the future is not about doing more after the problems arise. It's about designing those systems that prevent larger problems from developing in the first place. So to be successful, we've got to look at timely action along with the integrated data and responsible innovation and all the things that we've talked about. So just in closing, I'd like to remind you that providers play a central role in your long-term success. And as healthcare becomes more complex, providers are increasingly affected by documentation demands, quality expectations, compliance requirements, and administrative burden. Stronger systems should not add more pressure. They should, there is always the learning curve, which will feel like more pressure, but ultimately in the end, they should better support providers by delivering some timely insights and reducing that unnecessary rework. Integrating workflows more effectively into the daily practice. And providers can also contribute directly to stronger outcomes through their accurate documentation, their early patient engagement, and preventative care, and consistent follow-through on the quality and compliance initiatives. This is where the whole team can jump in and help. The medical assistants can help recognize open gaps. Office managers can maintain the compliance. So everyone's success will depend on creating an environment where providers are supported with the better tools, clearer workflows, and the actionable data that helps them to deliver high quality care more efficiently. And with that, I'd like to thank you again for your time, welcome you to reach out with any questions or comments you may have, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.